It's time for the Drink O'Clock podcast. So pour yourself a stiff one, sit back and relax, and let's get to it. And now, here's your host, Rob Max ABV Valencius.
I love this software. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. So welcome to the Drink O'Clock podcast.
Awesome. Thank you.
My first introduction is I got to ask, I'm guessing, is your last name's not really Moose, is it? Because if it is, that's fucking awesome.
No, it's my nickname. It's my childhood
awesome.
name.
All right.
Yeah.
So I have Melissa Moose. And why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
All right. Well, I'm Melissa.
Oh, by the way, cheers. Because I always cheers everybody that's on.
Yep.
Nice. Congrats.
I'm enjoying a Phillips Little Wonder today. Phillips is a brewing company based on Vancouver Island, and they have these Little Wonders, 4% beers, low carb, low cal. I didn't know that. I just bought
Really?
them. Yeah, I just bought them because they're called Little Wonder, and I was like, oh, just like me, a Little Wonder.
We drink Bud Light next. It's Bud Light, but it's 0 carbs and 80 calories. It's the only beer that actually has alcohol in it on the market that has 0 carbs. Now, I'm worried because God only knows what type of chemicals are in them.
Yeah, they don't even have that here, so there must be some chemicals in them. Because they don't even sell that in this part of Canada I'm in.
It doesn't taste bad. But I'm sure it's not good for me. So it's like half the things that I do to my body. It's been a spectacle in here, you know. But go ahead, sorry.
That's the magic of it. Yeah, I guess. Okay, I'll introduce myself briefly by. It'll be relevant to everything we talk about. I was born in South America, and I moved to Canada and grew up there. And then also in the United States. So I kind of grew up in America back in the heyday in the 80s when it was awesome to go travel with your family and good times. Hershey's, Pennsylvania. Yay. Chocolate.
That's where I'm from.
No.
I'm Philly, man.
Well, yeah, Pennsylvania. There you go.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. Pennsylvania was the first rainbow gathering, national rainbow gathering I went to, too. Was in Pennsylvania in 1999, yeah, in the Allegheny National Forest.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like 6 hours from me, but
yeah,
the city has some interesting times down there, and actually one of my favorite places to go, they call it the Gayborhood in the city.
Nice.
Is it's called Woody's, and it is a gay bar, and it is,
of course it is,
so much fun. It's probably the most fun you're going to have in the city. And that's where typically people end up like after midnight in the city. Because everyone's dancing, right? Just having a good fucking time, you know?
I feel like in any city, if there is, because there is a town in British Columbia and it's really far up in the north there, but it's only like halfway up the province. But provinces are massive. So that's a thing. And it's called Prince George. And here's the thing I've lived in British Columbia for like the last decade. And because I've traveled around a lot, places tend to remind me of other places. Like, that's why I don't really, it's all irrelevant. Because like, you know, like the rolling hills of West Virginia, you see that out here. You see that in different spots. Like, but so Prince George is up in the north. And I noticed something about the north. You don't just go like distance in kilometers or miles or like, you know, time and hours or whatnot. You go back in time, like just to a place that is like, you know, they have not come into the 21st century, everyone. And a lot of people don't want to. So Prince George, someone told me when I went up there, don't go to town on Thursdays because that's when the loggers, which is a lot of the BC guys, come to town, and then the construction guys from Alberta a lot of time. So don't go to town on Thursdays because that's, you know, when they both get their checks and go drinking. And I guess that was true back in the day. Like, you would not go to town on a Thursday. Some places used to close their bars because the amount of damage that these two groups of men with like, like rough, tough. We're talking about guys that are pulling wrenches and throwing, chainsaws around and wood and stuff. So they're all drinking and fighting. It's not like that now, but it's still,
Wow.
yeah, it's still quite terrible. A lot of stuff goes on in the North that's horrible, like just drug addiction, lack of access to resources. The Highway of Tears in Canada, it runs through Prince George, which is like a highway that's infamous for missing women, children, and men, Indigenous women and children and men, Native people.
Is that the one? Is that the one that they say is haunted?
No, the thing about the Highway of Tears is that it has dead zones, lots of dead zones, and no cell service at all. So, like, yeah, you can't even there's no emergency 911. It runs from the middle of the upper northern part of the province to the coast, which is because British Columbia is on the Pacific coast there. It's just like right above Washington State. And then there's a little island called Vancouver Island where all the rich white British people moved to long times ago, and then retirees came because it's so warm and mild here in winters. Very few times is there snow, but thanks to climate change or global warming, whichever you prefer, there is snow here now in the winters, and it's awesome watching people not be able to drive in it.
That's fun. I'm probably the worst Northeasterner. I hate snow. I don't own boots.
It's not great.
I haven't purchased a jacket probably since I was a kid, which means my mom bought the jacket. I own hoodies. I'll walk outside in shorts and it's 20 degrees or
Pennsylvania too. It's not like you don't get some kind of like winter because it's pretty close to Canada.
Yeah, I'm the worst. If you envisioned a highly untrained Northeasterner, it would be me. But
you're like,
it kind of is what it is.
You're like a West Coaster at heart. Just like, you need a vest. You just need a puffy vest. That's it.
I'm a summer baby. And I'm just
saying, the West Coast, summer all the time.
Yeah. I really enjoy, like, I don't care about seasons. I do like fall. I don't mind fall.
Because of Halloween. Does Halloween play a role in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be top 3 holidays, right?
Right.
Got to be top 3. But I like the light jacket feel, and winter doesn't play well with my ensembles, so I tend to not be and shoveling snow when you're an adult, especially. I'm 36. Shoveling snow is awful in your mid-30s.
Oh, it can kill you.
2 hours of that shit,
yeah,
and my back is like the worst.
People actually die shoveling snow because a lot of times you can overexert yourself, and people have been recorded having a lot of heart attacks, a lot of like cardiac events that lead to their passing away because of snow shoveling. It's like statistically like true. You should always take it easy and not overexert yourself. Snow tends to look really light too, and then if it gets a little melt in there, it can get really heavy. So then you like pull out your back, injure yourself. There's a case of
This was the first year that I bought the shovels that have the divot in them.
Yeah.
So that way it doesn't. This is the first year that I've owned one.
Congratulations, yeah. You're old.
Yeah. I'm like, and that was probably the best winter purchase I had last year. Was getting a snow shovel.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You get excited for the fucking dumb shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes your life relatively easier because now you're like, oh, I've been alive so long. I
bought an espresso machine the other day.
Nice.
Which is awesome because I'm trying to quit energy drinks.
Oh, that's a good call.
I've been drinking energy drinks, so I'm 36.
I can't believe you made it to 36.
I'm shocked that I made it to 36. But I've been drinking energy drinks since I was probably 20.
Oh my God.
We're talking 16 years every day. And I have a normal heart rate.
Oh, you know what? It's probably because you started at 20. You didn't start at like 15.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my body basically has become accustomed to it. But I will tell you, I've stopped drinking energy drinks. I'm on day 4 or 5.
Oh my God. You went cold turkey? Was there any kind of withdrawal symptoms?
Well, I'm drinking coffee. 1 coffee a day.
Nice.
because I bought the Nespresso machine.
That's right.
And I got to tell you, by like 8 o'clock, I'm fucking ready for bed. It's awful. Like normally by 3, I've had like 600 milligrams of caffeine. Easy.
Yeah.
It's like a minimum for me. So I'm good. But only having like 100 is 1/6 of what I'm used to, you know? So it's like, I'm not used to it. I really don't like it.
You were running on energy drinks. Yeah, you were running on energy drinks.
And I know every time I talk to someone, they're like, it's not good for you. You hurt. And I'm like, I fucking know. I obviously know that if you look at a can and it's got a paragraph of ingredients, it's not good for me. You know,
real.
Anything over 5 is probably not good for you.
I feel like at this point,
but
I'm only going to say that kind of shit to like, you know, people under the age of, let's say 21, probably secretly in my head, under the age of 30. I just consider them all the same. They're all children. But like, I mean, if you're 80,
under 30 is a kid.
If you're 80, then like, that's like, so you're a baby. Like I mean, honestly, for the first 10 years of your life, you're not even like a real legit person yet, because what has happened to you? Like nothing. You've been alive for like a minute. Like
you had someone wipe your ass for the first 30% of your life.
Yeah. Like, you know, and then when you're 20, you've only really been alive for like 10 years then technically. And for 10 of those years, you were probably an asshole because you were a teenager. So like, you know, like that's like that whole 10 years, probably 7 of those 10 years, you were just a dick. So, you know, chemical imbalance and whatnot. So you did not even really like, you know, becoming like an adult till you're like maybe 30. And then it's like, oh, the truth. Because I feel like that third decade is when you're like, wow, there's shit behind me. I can like look behind me now. That's terrifying. Like, and then you got to look in front of you and you're like, oh, that's even worse. Like, yeah. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, you know, I was around, I think being in my mid 30s, I can appreciate, like I grew up when cell phones didn't exist for people.
Yeah.
Unless you were rich. And
they didn't do anything like fun anyway. Like,
no, you can't do fucking nothing.
You just
like
made
you do with
phone
the fucking
calls
phones
on
now.
them. Like, yeah, and texts.
And text barely, right?
You could like
that was like
page someone without having to use a payphone on them. That's pretty much the advantage.
But I mean, like, I remember before there was phones. Yeah. So like time, like you have before phones and after phones, and I feel like things were just so different.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm not old enough. I feel like I'm not old enough to, like, I appreciate it, but I feel like I'm not old enough to really appreciate it because I was 13 or 14 when I got my first cell phone, you know? So I got past those first couple years and I was okay, but I remember them very vividly, you know? But then after you get your phone and you can instantly message somebody, I'll never forget. My mom listens to this. She'll laugh at this, but we have
nice. That's awesome.
we had T-Mobile, and I didn't know this at the time, but you remember AOL, Instant Messenger, right?
Yeah.
That was the primary thing that we used when we were kids. So
yeah, that was the messenger for sure.
I could use AIM on my phone. I forget which phone I had, but I didn't realize that every incoming message counted as a text. And every outgoing message counted as a text. Oh. And back then, there wasn't unlimited. Every plan now is unlimited, right? Back then, you're like, you got to, yeah. Back then, it's like you have 1,000 texts. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll be fine. You know, or it was 500. I did like 20,000 or something crazy. And the bill was like $600 just for me. And my mom flipped shit. And she's like the nicest lady ever. She's like, what the fuck were you doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, Mom, I had no idea, you know? The bill, you know, they'd send you the paper bill. Our bill was like a textbook. It was like this big.
Was it actually transcribed all the messages or just the numbers? It's just the numbers.
It was just the numbers.
Yeah,
like just the numbers
out,
and the date.
And like probably one every minute you're sending like 2, 3.
Probably best at the time that, like, you know, because I was like a 13, 14-year-old guy. Probably best it didn't transcribe any of the shit fucking saying at the time, Oh my God, I would never would have been able to leave the house ever again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
So you got to tell me a little bit about your traveling. So I think that I love to travel. I've been all over the country. I work in insurance. So like, I probably travel 10, 15 times a year all over the fucking place.
Nice.
We vacation a lot of times in the Dominican Republic. So Punta Cana, we love to go there. But I'm very interested because I've never been to Canada.
That's crazy because you're pretty close to it.
we're pretty close, and I've been in Michigan, and I was like, we're driving. Yeah, we're like driving, and you could just see the sign, and I didn't have my passport with me at the time, so I couldn't cross over. But
because after 9/11, you need a passport.
Yeah, you're kind of fucked. But now I have a passport card, which does work, I think, in Canada and Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a little bit easier. But tell me what life is like in Canada, right? Are they as nice as everybody, likes to say they are? And I will premise this by saying I read a bunch of your stories you posted. So after reading your car crash one, I don't fucking know, man. That's some fucked up shit.
Yeah, it's like anywhere. I know, actually, I'll tell you, because this map behind me is a map of America, and it's been collaged up with like various things I've put on it to mark different places where I've done stuff in the States. Because like I said, I used to go to America when I was a kid, and then, grew up in Canada, and I spent more time in America. And then now, this is like 10 years ago, I came to BC. And British Columbia, there's like 13 provinces, I hope that's right, in Canada. And the northern ones, like in the top, nobody like goes up there. It's like how like you think of Canada. Canada thinks of the northern part of Canada like that. Also, there's not really much up there, and you got to be pretty like, smart and resourceful to live in a Northwest Territory and able to deal with not being able to have stuff. So what it's like living in Canada, it's like going to a store in America where there's like 60% less product available. Like instead of like 12 kinds of something, you can pick from like 3. Or they just don't even sell that at all. That's a big thing about Canada. Like when I was a kid, everybody used to cross the border, especially if you lived. Most people in Canada actually live within 100 kilometers or miles. I'm not sure which one of the border with the United States. It's like mostly populated the lower parts of Canada. Maybe also it's a little bit warmer too. Everywhere else pretty cold. But like the East Coast is all fishing. I'm gonna be so. Like, please forgive me, but it's like where Trailer Park Boys is filmed, and there's a lot of like fishing is the industry. There's not a lot of work. Yeah. That's why you run into people from the East Coast and other parts of Canada. And then British Columbia is on the other side, and that's all like the California of Canada. It's a weird time here in British Columbia. Ontario's in the middle, kind of, sort of. It's like huge, and it has all these Great Lakes in and around it. So, and most of the population, like 40%, I believe, of the population of Canada lives in Ontario. And that's also where the capital of Ontario is. So like our Washington, DC is in Ontario. And then Saskatchewan is mostly just farmland, and nobody like stops there because it's like minus 153 in the winter. And in the summer, the houseflies bite. It's not just like deer flies and horse flies, houseflies, like actual just houseflies bite. And so nobody wants to stay there either. Alberta is the Texas of Canada. And everywhere in every single province, everywhere I go, I've not really spent a lot of time in Quebec. It's French. I went there when I was a kid on a school trip. But like every province is like the north is vastly, drastically different than the south part of the province. Because there tends to be a lot more population in the bottom half of a province. And then the top half is like where, people log and like have cattle, or, it's like more countrified.
Because it's cold as shit?
Yeah. Well,
like, is it colder?
It is colder, except for coastal British Columbia and like Vancouver Island, and also don't tell anyone, but Haida Gwaii are warmer. They're more tropical because of warm air off the ocean, I want to say, and some various other stuff that I don't know anything. I'm not qualified to talk about, but Yeah, like warm currents coming off the ocean keep this place like unseasonably warm in the winters, which is why it's expensive to live in BC and everybody wants to live here. Well, not everybody. Well, not the people that have been here. They just like leave. They're like, fuck that. It's too expensive. But actually, Point Pelee in Ontario is level with like the top of California or something. That's how far down it comes, and then like California's over here, and then Point Pelee comes down, and I guess if you looked on a map, they're actually level with each other. It's just not tropical.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's just Canada's just right here. It's just it's like anywhere. Like people in Canada used to be like, I've known people that have not liked America and had a really bad, like idea of Americans. And then I was like, oh my God, they're like just people, right? Like how you're people, they're people too. Like it's not like, like whatever you
people
think.
In general just suck.
Well, they can.
Universally.
They can. They can. It's just like the reasons why they do, those are so unique. Like everybody has their own reasons for what might make them suck if they suck. And some people are redeemable. The recidivism rates with people that suck don't have to be as high as they are. It's just that like, it's really easy to use money to like make up for what you lack or just avoid having to learn what you probably should if you want to be happy. Like, but Canada is a weird time. And I mean, it's like anywhere. There's people here that are horrible and there's people here that are not. So you can't really be like, oh, like I have to be really careful about not being like all the white people because like, let's face it, like there is some really shitty stuff that colonialism has done, but there's always like more than one side to things. And also like, I'm a really big fan of Lynyrd Skynyrd because Ronnie Van Zant has written so many songs that speak to my soul and my human condition as a person that I can't ignore that kind of like talent and also just, the connections that I can make with myself. So I can't really go around ever like hating white people because I really love Skynyrd. So like it would make it's just, and also there is a lot of Canadian people who have like, really light skin. I can't like, it would be stupid to just, because they're not terrible and they don't like, steal land from anyone or, abuse children. They don't do anything like that. They're just like people living their lives. Just, everybody's like different. It's fun. I've had a good time on reses too, like reserves. I've been out to some and, just hung out and I'm like, oh my gosh, Native people are just like people. It's funny because growing up in Canada, like I thought Native people was like in like storybooks, like they're in history books. Like I didn't realize that they were like
and
still
movies and TV.
Yeah,
shit,
like I remember seeing Native people like in a grocery store and being like, "Whoa!" Like, wow! Like they're just wearing clothes just like us, which is like a very typical, I think, Canadian. It's a very typical response to being not exposed to things or being just fed this like idea of what people are, and then actually going out in the world and being like, "Oh my God, people are not like that at all. People are people. People are people." Like,
you know what show I think portrays that pretty well? I don't know if you ever watch Yellowstone?
I don't, but a lot of people that I know do, and they like really enjoy that. Have you seen Reservation Dogs?
I have not.
That's a very very real and also humorous take on like what it's like living on a res and being a res kid. It's like it's a lot of that stuff, and even though it's filmed, it's like American, right? So sometimes slang doesn't translate over. There's a really good movie called Slashback. It's like teenage girls meets Evil Dead in a coming of age horror film, and it's filmed all up in like this crazy part of Canada that you have to take a boat to get to or fly in, and like it's just like alien invasion in a town, and then these teenage girls have to like go fight it, like, and they do.
That's pretty cool
with makeshift weapons. Yeah, it's a really like realistic look into like what it's like to live up north in a place like that, like for sure. And it's just like Evil Dead. It's hilarious. Yeah,
I fucking love Evil Dead. Such a classic.
Like
it's aged so well.
Slashback. Yeah, it's new and it's like totally Canadian film good Canadian film, not some cheesy, like, ugh. Some of it, I don't know. I can't even with that. Some of it, I just don't even, like, it's funny because in Canada, there's obviously this perception and also this marketing of Canada, the way they sell it. And like that it's maybe just everybody is like Pamela Anderson, except with brown hair.
Yeah.
But like, no. Or they're Ryan Gosling, or what's the other one? Ryan Reynolds. Oh my God. No. Like,
Ryan Reynolds is my, if I ever went gay, it would be Ryan Reynolds.
yeah.
It would be Ryan Reynolds.
I could see that.
He's attractive and he's funny. Two great things to have.
I'm super over that kind of thing though. I'm like, I like people that, it's the DMT in Ontario, in Northern Ontario, actually, before I was driving back. I drove across Canada from British Columbia, from one island to another island in Ontario, and which was awesome because I went island to island with just, driving over the land. Such a little portage that was. And like,
it's pretty cool.
On the way out, I ran into an old friend of mine, and then his roommate, who actually does it in ceremonies and, like legit does it, offered me some DMT. So I tried it and it was awesome. But now I feel like, I don't know, like things are just like different. They've changed in this way that I'm like, okay, like I'm cool with this, but also like, wow, like a lot of stuff doesn't matter anymore. It never did. So
I had a couple people. I had a couple people on my podcast. Jay Nelson, I talked to him a couple times, but he was on my podcast a couple episodes ago, and he wrote a book about consciousness. And he took a lot of LSD. He's taken like a bunch of different hallucinogens.
Yeah,
psychedelics.
I share that resume experience as well.
But he's told me he's changed his experience on psychedelics, especially LSD. It changed him as a person.
Yeah.
I've never taken any psychedelics. I'd like to. I think I would like to try maybe doing like a microdose of something. My thing is I got to know that I'm getting, real shit and not like fake shit, or like that shit that's going to fucking kill me. So that's probably my only apprehension.
For sure.
And this is coming from someone who used to buy weed from like the guy on the corner that was like sweeping a street. Cause that's how we bought weed back in the day. But I mean, like, I don't know. I guess I'd have to be assured that it's real. Before
yeah. And I mean, you don't want any garbage because you're probably going to have like a bad trip if you do something like, I mean, even mushrooms, you do the wrong mushrooms and you're going to have a bad trip. It's going to be a bad time. You do too many and you might have a bad trip. I didn't even realize there's so many different strains of mushrooms too, but that's a big thing now. Microdosing is a really good way to get the benefits without having to do like a whole vision quest. Because I think the best part about like acid, for sure, LSD, is that it is like it's like the beginning of it. It's like when you get on a roller coaster. Like once you take it, you can't get off. Like it's kind of scary. You're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? I did it when I was young and stupid, and it ended up being a really good therapeutic tool. It's funny that people use hallucinogenics for that now, because like when I was probably 18, I had a roommate that was Tyler, the skateboarder from the mall, and like all the girls were like in love with Tyler. He's like that cool skateboarder kid. Yeah, and like the funniest part of it too is like in retrospect, like he has another friend that was much better. And there's always like in a little skateboarding crew, I find that there is always like one guy or girl who is just really good at it and does it because they love skateboarding and they're also really good at it. So like that's their thing. And then there's a bunch of other people who just like want to be skateboarders and they like it. They think it's cool, but like maybe they're not very good at it and they don't really.
That was me.
Yeah. So they do like like 3 tricks. You got like 3 tricks. And then
you can ollie, kick flip, and then fall a lot.
Yeah. So this guy was one of those people too, but I guess it's just the blonde hair and doing lots of acid and being really weird and, super fun. He was like, that just like guy that everybody, oh my God, Tyler, he's so cute. Like, so he lived with me and we ended up doing a lot of LSD together, but I wasn't like crushing on Tyler. And it just ended up being like a lot of talking about like like, just like different shit that I didn't realize what we were doing or why. I remember one time, just because I came from a pretty wealthy family, but also a pretty like mean family too, like not nice people. They were definitely using the money. That's why I mentioned that earlier about sometimes money makes up for stuff. They definitely used it 100% in order to be terrible to people and then just be like, well, you have to kiss my ass because I'm rich. And my dad is the like king of very successful at that. And I remember Tyler looking at me and being like, well, like, who cares what your dad thinks because your dad's an asshole? And that was like the first time that anyone had ever said to me, like, yeah, but your dad's an asshole. Like, it's just probably the acid. Like, I mean, I never had realized or even like conceptualized that idea before that, like, oh, perhaps he is, because everybody just, it's like, he was the richest person at that point in our family. So everybody just, yeah, no, he's perfect and he's great. Nothing he does is wrong. Never occurred to me that, like, oh yeah, no, like he actually is an asshole. Like nice people don't do that. Like, so that was,
well, when you grow up like that, right? You're like in this little bubble, especially with your parents, like protecting you,
it's,
and
well,
I think
no, I didn't
sometimes it
even,
takes that outside.
Yeah, and I was actually
perspective.
raised by his parents, so I didn't even grow up with him. He was like going to university to be really good at like communications so that he could get into the cell phone game really early on, which he did, and then like end up racing Lamborghinis for charity around Malaysia, where he lives in a gated community that has an in-ground Olympic-sized pool, and at one point had a gorilla problem. Yeah, there's a gorilla loose there. Wow. Rich people problems. But
must be nice.
yeah, I've never been, so I assume it must be. Like, I don't see how any of that could be terrible. It's and I'm pretty sure he lives in Malaysia, because where we're from is not a place you want to go and be rich. You will not be happy there. You will just get murdered.
Yep, probably same here.
But like, I found with LSD, it's just once those walls come down, all the walls in your mind everything you think and the way that you think comes down, because now there's nothing. It's just you and yourself, and like trying to understand things through this like new lens of like, whoa, like what's going on? I've never been here before. I've never felt this before. And you can go with it. And then it opens up your brain to just like other ways of understanding the world around you, other ways of like relating to things. It can be really like scary for sure, I'm sure. And at one point I thought that, everybody should do acid. I thought everybody should go to a rainbow gathering, but they shouldn't. Everybody shouldn't do everything, because some people are just the way they are, and it's not going to do anything for them. Like, it's not going to open their minds. It's not going to make them better people, or, like whatever it is. Like, you can't, I know people that have done ayahuasca and they're still like douchebags. Really nice people, but the one guy is a super nice guy, but he's also a douchebag, and he's still a douchebag after ayahuasca. It did not magically fix what it was that he was looking for. That didn't happen. Now he just has like a cool story about going to Peru and doing ayahuasca, which is really what he's into, is cool stories like that. So I guess in a way he did get, something out of it. Just not what he.
But that's still kind of a douchebag thing, though.
Yeah. Well,
to be the story guy, like
it's, and I mean, all hallucinogens and all of that, I think psychedelics and all of it, from what I realize now, like using it as like, recreationally younger, and then getting older and actually having a different, because as you age too, trips change. Like, I mean, the fun you have when you're in your 20s is going to look a lot different on the other side of 40 or 50 or 60. Like, now it's like, you're just not the same person that you were, even like, hopefully, because I mean, that'd be great. If you are the same person, then you're like that 50-something-year-old that's shopping at Forever 21 because you can still fit in those clothes, and like just terrifying everybody at the bar on the weekend. Like, yeah, that's who you are. Which
Tyler's still a semi-okay skateboarder doing LSD.
Right? Now he just makes like really disturbing, depressing art, and is an alcoholic, I believe. Yeah. But living together, like I paid his, it was basically like a therapist situation because I paid his rent and his bills because obviously the skater from the mall that lives on popcorn and cigarettes isn't like working regularly and like covering his shit. So I did end up probably like covering thousands of dollars of, but I was able to, in my mind, just be like, look at all that free therapy you got. Like you got like all this great therapy that it turns out was actually
that'd be more expensive.
it probably would have. I probably owe him money, but don't tell him that because he might come around looking.
Tyler, if you're listening, you don't owe shit.
Yeah, you don't get shit, Tyler. Just keep making all that depressing, make that depressing alcoholic art. Like, I would actually buy something, but I never find anything he makes that doesn't look like it's just like some sort of abortion of paint on a canvas. It's all really like dark and I mean, like I've talked to people that know the guy too, and I'm like, do you find it a little bit like dark and depressing? I don't understand, like, even like to leave him alone, even like metal music. Like I enjoy some really hard, awesome music and bands, but like I couldn't listen to that every day all the time because I would just be so hopped up on like aggression. Like I'm not as angry as
it's a mood.
Yeah.
It's a mood, I'm the same way. Like there's certain things like, like I listen to A Day to Remember and they're like they could be hard, but they can also be soft. And like, there's part of their music that I could listen to on a daily basis, but then there's part of their music that I got to be in a particular mood, especially if I'm working out, I could listen to probably all of it, you know, because especially if you're listening to like fucking metal, you're like, fuck.
Oh yeah, or cleaning. But I find cleaning to like hard, heavy music is also very like motivating.
Interesting.
That is my workout. It's like clean. It's mentally cleaning too.
Well, about psychedelics, so like I think my biggest worry is, so me and my fiance, we've been together forever. We're going on like 13 years. Oh. Yeah, we're gonna keep riding it out,
Nice.
And we're both we're happy people, but we're both very dark. We have like, we like serial killers and shit. Like we got dark shit.
Yeah,
and she's got like her family.
Until you meet one, you like them from afar.
Yeah, until you meet one.
Yeah.
But like just like you, like her family, like her parents were they're awful. To a certain degree in terms of like, they don't tell you they love you. There's no hugging or kissing.
No, that's
meanwhile, like, meanwhile, my mom tells me she loves me 17 times before I get off the phone call. And then afterwards I'm getting a text. Yeah, my mom, I love her.
Oh, your mom's awesome.
But we have dark thoughts. That's my only worry about taking a psychedelic is confronting those dark thoughts.
No.
And how that manifests a little bit.
No, I don't think that'll be like, I mean, I'm not going to say that you're not going to murder somebody, but I mean, that would be the worst case scenario, is that you actually have thoughts so dark that you go out and like the two of you like sort of come to, and there's like a body in your house and you're like,
it's like some Dexter type shit.
Yeah. And then you don't know how
I mean more
there.
like, I mean more like the experience of like confronting the dark side of myself. Cause I don't do that often. I think that's the one part that scares me of doing psychedelics,
That's the
like
thing.
How dark is the dark that I know it's there. I just don't know how fucked up it is.
Right?
But
like, that's the thing is it's not anything as straightforward, because you can't like perceive what it'll be like when you're tripping, because you'll be tripping, and tripping is totally different than like regular life. It's not actually as scary as all that. And you don't go into like, I mean, it depends what you're doing too. I think you gotta like, because I've had a friend who did mushrooms like the first time back when we were younger, and she had a horrible time on it because everyone was just looking at a TV, like watching someone play video games, or I think they were like watching some stupid movie or something. Like, not even, I think they were like playing video games, and it's like, okay, so you're just gonna get messed up on mushrooms and play video games. So she she just kept seeing these. She described it to me as like all these evil lines were coming off that box, and like that's what her trip was just
fucking
like
lines,
you know, like
man.
this
Lines.
thing is stealing everyone's attention. We're not interacting with each other. We're not doing, because whenever we would do shrooms, or especially the acid, like it involved going outdoors. It would involve a trek. You go on a trip, like you're tripping. So you go on a trip, you go on a journey, like even if it's just to the store, so you can like, you know, stand in the 7-Eleven and laugh at chocolate bars for like 10 minutes at 4 a.m, because we've done that too. And you could tell the guy who works at 7-Eleven. Oh my God. And the guy that works at 7-Eleven was 100% like, yeah, this happens all the time. Like, this is not, don't worry, you guys. I'm not going to call the cops on you. Like,
you guys are cool. Don't worry about it.
I know what's wrong with worse. You. Yeah. And like, we know what's going on. You like came in here because you got the munchies, because you've probably been up all night doing shrooms, and like, now you're trying to figure out what you're going to get, but you're still tripping. So this is all, the 15-minute walk probably took like an hour, because you keep stopping and looking at stuff. Like, thank gosh we didn't have phones, because can you imagine like all the dumb stuff we had taken pictures of, or like videos? We even had video cameras. I had a VHS-C, like the most ridiculous format of like.
Yeah, basically, it looks like a fucking boom box, and it's got the little thing on it.
Tiny little
like, oh, hold on.
Yeah. It was like the Betamax of like, you know, but that's an obscure reference. You can't talk about VCRs, but it was like just so stupid. And all the tapes, I have the tapes somewhere, and I've never watched them. Maybe one day I will. I don't know why. I'm sure there's some funny stuff on there, but it's probably useless. And I'll just reinforce the fact that like, yeah, you didn't really know anything then. You do kind of look at what you don't know when you're like tripping, but all that reflective stuff can be controlled by like, you know, the mindset for sure, like what head frame you're in, like, you know, are you on the brink of homelessness? Maybe it would be good if you were on the brink of homelessness to do it. Maybe it would reshift your perspective. But then, you know, like, are you in an environment with like people you don't know or you don't like you just gotta like break through the fear. That's the key to like psychedelics and having like a, you know, like a good experience on them, is just breaking through the fear. Because one thing I always did on acid, I will tell you this, is that like, and I'm the queen of a run-on sentence. Oh my God. It's like, I always just reminded myself, you're just tripping out. It's okay. Like, you're just tripping out. And when I would like get like worried about something, I would be like, okay, but if that happens, right, then what's the worst that could happen from that? And then I think about like, okay, but if this happens, then maybe that happens. And then I'd be like, okay, but that's not that bad. And then maybe this would happen. And okay, that's not that bad either. I'd always break it back down into like little sizes that I could like handle and be like, okay, yeah, but that's still not the worst thing in the world. And that's why I never had a bad acid trip.
It's like that meme from It's Always Sunny with Charlie, and he's smoking a cigarette, but behind him he's got like the map, and it's got all the red lines everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not afraid of it. I think at some point I will, and I think, you know, me and Tasha, my fiance, I feel like it's something we would do together. You know, probably just us, because I feel like it's a lot of raw emotion. It's like a lot of rawness to it.
It's a lot of laughing. There's a lot, all psychedelics. That's how you know they're kicking in. Like every psychedelic seems to have the same thing where I don't know about the DMT, because like during my trip, I did actually say, oh my God, this is why Joe Rogan loves this stuff. I actually said that. Like, I thought I was like, you know, tripping out for like 20 minutes. And my buddy was like, it was like 2 minutes, Melissa. You were like on DMT for like 2 minutes. But to me, it felt like 20 minutes. Like all the stuff that happened, all the stuff. I said stuff out loud that my buddy's like, you know, like you didn't say that. Like, but I thought I was, but I did say some stuff out loud. But then there's other stuff I said that I clearly wasn't saying out loud. So that was what my thing was when Buddy offered it to me. He said, "Are you scared?" And I was like, well, I'm not scared, but I also don't want to be like tripping out for, you know, like
20 years.
Yeah. The rest of my life. Like I just fried my brain, and now I'm like, oh, like I don't want to be a wingnut, because I met them at rainbow gatherings, and those are just people that have shorted out, you know, now they're just they're not all bad either, but they are working on a different frequency. And I am, but I also have to human as well. Like, so I don't want to be,
It's so
too far
funny
out.
though with the laughing, right? I feel like I'll never forget this.
I don't know why that happens.
When I was, how old was I? I feel like I was like 19 or 20. I was high as shit. And I was with my brother, my younger brother by 5 years. He was high as shit.
Yeah.
And we were with one or two of our buddies, and we were we rolled blunts, and we were doing the fucking blunt ride, old school. And we're like, let's go to Wendy's. We're hungry as shit. So we pull up into we pull up into the fucking driveway, into the drive, and the drive-through, and the guy that's talking, my buddy, we couldn't say a sentence without laughing. So we're just like, he says something, and we just start fucking laughing hysterically. And then like my buddy's like, and he tries to say something, and then we all just start laughing. So we put the order in, and instead of like paying or staying, we just left. I'm like, he's gonna spit in our food. We're gonna have spit in our food 100%. And like, I feel like that was the only time I've ever left a drive-through for something like that, because we just couldn't stop laughing. And then like got paranoid as fuck. We just smoked ourselves to oblivion.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with the chocolate bar and the mushrooms in that 7-Eleven. We just could not stop laughing at all the different names of chocolate bars, and just, and then right before we went up to the counter, we also got really paranoid that like, oh, the guy's gonna know. And it's like, the guy's known for the last 15 minutes because we've been in here laughing at chocolate bars. Nobody takes 15 minutes to buy a chocolate bar. Like, they know you're fucked up.
He's known for literally the moment you step foot into the store. He's like, oh, those people are high.
Those people are really high on drugs. Or they're
tripping on something.
Yeah. And I think that in that situation, you never know. At that drive-thru, that person could have been like, yeah, I've been there. These kids are stoned. And everything is hilarious.
I was there last night.
It's it's super funny because when you're young, you forget that other people were young. Not everybody's born the age they are. It's not like, oh, that guy's always been a 50-year-old dude, or that person's always been old. That person's always had gray hair. It's like, oh, no, at one point they were obnoxious and young and full of life and hope, and some people
hope
still are.
Dreams.
Yeah, and if you can actually stay full of hope and dreams and like enthusiasm for life, even as you get older, you're like, you're the real PhD. I mean, you could probably do heart surgery, but you'd kill the person. But you're like, that's some masterclass shit right there. Just being able to make it through life and not have it dull. Because bad things happen to everybody. It's just, it's how you react. It's that attitude thing by Charles Swindoll. It's so funny.
Yeah, right. It's kind of what makes you human. Is like all the pain that you go through in life, right?
Yeah.
And it's not how you handle it in the moment. It's how you handle it after the fact. I feel like I'll give you an example. Actually, my dad, he's going through a bunch of shit right now. So I'll kind of explain. So my dad's made some fucked up decisions in his life. He's not perfect. I haven't seen him in a couple of years. I used to live with him. He's my dad. It's kind of hard to explain, but recently he was fired from his job he's been at for 10 years for some fucking stupid circumstances. His buddy asked him if he could buy some weed off him, and he's like, no, just don't talk to me about that here at work. And someone said that he was a drug dealer. My dad's not a fucking drug dealer by any means. And then his wife was fired from her job a week ago because they said she was slow. Well, come to find out, this week he rushed her to the hospital. She's got a fucking brain tumor that's pushing on her brain, and it's causing her to be basically like she doesn't know her date of birth. Like, she has trouble speaking and standing and having like motor functions. And my dad's a mess, but he's pushing 60. So it's I feel like that situation is difficult because you're pushing like towards the end of your life, right? What do you got? 10, 15, 20 years. And you're thinking, all right, well, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this person. and we're gonna die together. And then all this shit gets like within the span of like fucking 3 weeks, all this shit happens.
Yeah.
You know, and it's how you come out of that, because I mean, I would be shocked if she survives. She's got a bum liver, you know, she's got emphysema. She's not like was perfectly healthy and then not, you know? So, I mean, and I feel bad. It's a sad story, but
Definitely.
it's how he's going to overcome that. Like, is he
Okay.
gonna overcome that?
But here's the thing. I like what you said there, that it's like, you know, it's like how you handle it. It's also everything that you've handled up until something, because bad things always happen and they always will. As long as you're like alive, like something's going to happen that you're not going to be like cool with. And sometimes it's like horrible, right? Like
Yeah.
this situation where it's like, oh my God, like that's, you know, but it's everything that's happened up until then and how you've handled those things that prepares you for the other things. I mean, I'm not per se, I'm an ex-Catholic. I don't hate God, but like we don't chill no more. And like Jesus will always be my homeboy.
Catholic.
You know.
You know.
Oh, I drink. Yeah. I got the water on the head. I was baptized. I'm blooded in to that Catholic church.
She's blood.
Yeah. I'm like all in that Catholic church. They jumped me in. But like, you know, I see I see in religion a lot of times the things they'll say and the way they'll word them. I'm like, okay, well, that's just good advice for life. Like, I know that it's the God that brings you to it, or like all together and you're hearing it, but that's just like some sensibility for life. Like, especially just, it's like everything that happens, you know, up until that point. I get why people embrace religion, because it's comforting in a time when you are like at your lowest point sometimes, and, you know, like jail or death. Like those are two times when people, you know, gravitate towards it. But like, it's everything that happens that kind of toughens you up for these things that get you through, like, you know, and then dumb stuff too, like just like strength in the most unlikely and unknown places. You find something and you're like, oh my God, okay, that's gonna just, you know, like I said with the acid, even to like do a callback, you got to break it down into like digestible little clumps that you can manage, and that's how you deal with like unbearable, just like horrific things that happen. Like you just gotta day by day it. And like, even if it's just like, it's kind of like alcoholics in AA, how they say like every minute, every hour, you know, every day, you just take it like little bits at a time, and then you can get through it. Because some things are just, I don't understand how people find the strength to deal with them, and they do.
It's wild, right? I mean, and I think that's the other part about being human. It's like shit that you think that you can't deal with, you can.
Yeah.
You know, and look, there's a lot of shit. People go through tremendous pain every day, and everybody's things are different. And I was going to school to be a psychologist. That was my favorite subject. It's where I actually met my fiance. And I'm obsessed with thoughts and humans and their behaviors and why they do what they do. So like for me, a lot of that's like, all right, well, you know, how I handle something is totally going to be different than, you know, how my dad handles things. And I think there's a lot of your past and things and experiences that play into that. But it's also just at the end of the day, like, how resilient are you?
Yeah.
How much do you value life? Because I mean, shit hits you hard, man. And I don't know if I've been tested like my dad, with at least the most recent scenario, because that's kind of crazy, you know, because you go from like being worried, all right, we're both laid off, like what are we gonna do? We don't have any money coming in, to, oh shit, like, you know, are you gonna survive 2 weeks? That's like just like, that's a mind fuck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's like, this is the worst thing that we could think of happening. And then it's like, no, it's not. This is now the worst thing that you could imagine. Yeah. Like, that's life. That's like the whole thing is like, of going through the fear, is like, you don't know that what you can deal with until you actually do it. There's tons of stuff I don't think I can do, but you know, then I do it. Like coming to BC, there's jobs. People have given me jobs, especially in remote places. They're like, oh, can you do this? And I'm like, well, I've never done that before. And they're like, yeah, whatever, like try. And then I do it. And then I'm like, oh, look at that. I can do this. I'm actually pretty good at it. Like, shit, I didn't know that. Like, whatever you think, that's funny too, because psychology, like, be glad the world doesn't need more psychologists. This is why I don't really write. I'm an awesome writer. Like, people tell me that all the time. I'm super good at writing, but like, I don't write a lot of stuff or books or anything because there's a lot of writers in the world. The world doesn't need more writers. But eventually, and I do here and there. I mean, you've read some of this stuff. It's like here and there I write stuff, but the world doesn't need more of a lot of things that there are. So, it's like you find a different way to like use those skills you have, and that like, the thing that interests you. There's other uses for it. Like, definitely it's in understanding the way people think. That's like, that's just like, it doesn't even matter, because the thing about thinking is that it should be mutable. It should be like able to change, like science, like, like, oh, we think that this does this. And then, oh, well, it turns out that actually this can do this, or that was wrong. Like, you gotta like be able to change the way you think, and, accept things that you didn't think you could too. It's like,
I 100% agree. And, I think there's a lot to that. So like, to kind of piggyback on your writing. Your writing is great. You paint a very unique picture. If you could quickly talk about the car crash one, because I think I read a couple. I read the island one, the lobster one,
the mushrooms,
but the car, yeah,
edible mushrooms.
Car crash one, the edible,
not psychedelic.
The car crash one was pretty fucked.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know how long ago that happened to you.
4 years ago.
I mean, you'd think that maybe things have changed, but really they haven't.
No.
That's still, part of all the adversity that everybody's dealing with. And look, I can't say I'm a white male. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I will tell you this. And a lot of people don't realize this. I'm actually Puerto Rican. Okay. My dad is adopted. My grandparents, his parents, live in Puerto Rico. So, but at the end of the day, I'm a very white man. So it's, you're not going to know that just by looking at me. My brother could grow a fro though. So at least he could do that.
And
I'm going
can't
bald.
Own things. Racists can't own things. So
I'm going bald. But, obviously racism is, especially over the past, since COVID, really, right? With all the stuff that's happened, with the whole Floyd situation and all that. So, reading that story, it was very impactful, because, I mean, you just went through this crazy experience, and then these cops are just laughing at you.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, and it's funny too, because a lot of people just, like 4 years ago, I had a brand new, like 2018 Kia Soul that my aunt and uncle gave to me. And thank you, aunt and uncle. It was kind of also because she wanted to get an electric one, so they had to do something with the not electric one. So here you go, honey, and thanks for thinking of me. But once again, the best intentions, right? And so I fell asleep driving, mostly because like heated seats, are warm, and it was about like it's like almost midnight. So I was just driving back up the island, and there's a lot of hills and stuff on this island. So you think like a drive that's an hour won't be a problem on the highway, but and started driving, and I guess I just got like, didn't realize how tired I was. It was funny because where I was in that town before I left, but he was like, you can stay here if you want, it's getting kind of late. And I'm like, no, I just had like a coffee at your place. I'm sure I'll be fine. Like, I'm not even tired right now. So then I came around this corner. It's funny because I drive by this spot, like because I still live on the island, I do drive by this spot, and I always look at it and think about it, because I'm like, super hard to kill.
Beat you, bitch.
I came around the corner, and it's like, it came down a hill, and it came around a corner, and I kept cornering. The car went over the train tracks, I guess. I was asleep. And I just remember kind of opening my eyes and seeing a bunch of thorn bushes like in front of the windshield. And I'm just like, wow, this is a crazy dream that I'm like, why am I, like, what am I dreaming? And then I kind of started to wake up and realize this is not a dream. And then that was about the time that the car must have like gone over this culvert, and it went down about like, I don't know, like 20 feet, and just smashed, like boom, and then stood up. It was a Kia Soul, so the back's flat. So I guess and it crushed the front end in. Like everything like was kissed against the windshield, like the battery, the frame was bent to all hell. Like, and I just woke up in it, and that was like the most terrifying experience of my life. And I realized, like, like it's dark in here. I could hear liquid. So I thought it was gas, which was horrifying because I was like, oh my God, like burning to death in a car fire, not cool. Then I realized it wasn't gas because gas has a smell. And my brain, even though I was like, I guess when the airbags all deployed and the frame got crushed, it knocked me out, just knocked me unconscious. I had a concussion. And I realized, okay, it's not gas. But then I was like, well, is it water? Because like, that's not better. Like, am I going to drown? Yeah. Am I like, where am I? So then panic set in. I started like just freaking out. I don't know what I was like doing, but I remember I screamed at myself, and like I like this voice. They talk about, I've heard this concept of like third party, like awareness. And that's what happened. Like I yelled at me to calm down because I was freaking right out. Like I watched a fish eat a bird up north one time, like chased it 40 feet to the shore and then just grabbed it, this little loon, and ate it. And that thing made a sound that I will never forget because it was blood curdling because it knew it was going to die. And I made that sound. And it was like insane. And then I yelled at myself to calm down. And the only reason I stopped is because the yelling made me calm down because I was yelling at myself. I'm like, you need to calm down. That's the only way you're going to get out of this. You have to calm down. And then I did calm down enough, grab my purse out of the back. It's completely dark. I'm like in the water, it's in some culvert next to the highway. The ocean is right there. Thank God the tide was out. And I somehow managed, I pushed the door on the passenger side because I always turn off the passenger side airbag. So if you're ever in my car, you don't have an airbag. And I'm so glad I do that. I don't even know why I do, but that's the only place there wasn't an airbag deployed. And when I tried to like open the door, it just went like a few inches and then snapped back like so hard. It was not, the frame was bent, but I didn't know that. And the dust, the talc that's in the airbag started kicking up. So now I'm coughing and I think I'm going to like choke to death in this car. That's when I freaked out. And then I yelled at myself, calmed myself down, got the purse, kind of wedged my body in between the passenger seat and sort of used my leverage. I'm also just one huge muscle, and adrenaline also gives you superhuman strength. So I managed to open that door. It would have cut somebody in half behind me the way it slammed back shut. And then I dropped into the culvert, just like had rubber boots on. So that was good. They weren't that tall though. And then I climbed through all these thorn bushes, like probably about 60 feet back to the road. And I didn't realize that there was like now that I've seen it during the day, there's like a path and a road. People go down there oyster farming. Like there's a path and a road right next that if I had light, right? But my phone was in the ditch and everything. I got to a rest area that was across the street. It was like probably like 2 a.m, like 2:30 or something. I don't even know how long I was unconscious. And then some really sketchy people stopped, and I asked them to call RCMP, call the police for me. And they did, but they were super sketchy. And then they left. And then I was just standing there at the side of the road. I went back to the side of the road where I had come up from and I had my purse in my hand, and I was just standing there in like a skirt and rubber boots. And I'm scared out of my mind. I don't know what's happened. I've just been in a car accident, and 2 RCMP officers showed up from the Oceanside Police Department, and they pulled over two cars too. And they just asked me where the car was. And I was like, I've been in a car accident. And they were like, well, where's the car? And I'm like, and I told them what happened. And then they just started laughing because they couldn't find the car. And then they were just like, I went in, I guess all the adrenaline started to wear off, and I went into shock and just dropped to my knees. And I was like, you didn't call an ambulance? He's like, oh, the one officer said, after they were laughing, and he said, do you want us to call you an ambulance? And I said, you didn't call an ambulance, and just like dropped to my knees. I guess I went into shock. Like then the one cop said to the other one, you should probably call an ambulance. And they did. When the paramedics showed up, like they were like, yeah, this woman has a concussion injury. She's in shock. And in that time, the cop asked me to blow a breathalyzer. And I hadn't been drinking because it's a brand new car. I'm not like stupid. I'm just act that way sometimes, but not with my brand new car. And I remember asking him, I said to him, I don't want to get a false reading because the head injury and the shock and everything. I was like, well, I've heard those things give false readings. That does not make any sense. But I was just so in shock that I'm like, so he said, oh, are you refusing to blow? And I was just like, no, I just want to know. Because the one cop, the first thing they said to each other was, he said, do you smell alcohol? And the other cop goes, no, I don't smell any alcohol, but it smells like marijuana. And like, I always smell like weed. So that's like, whatever. That's neither here nor there. But like, yeah, I was like, why do you want me to do breathalyzer if you don't smell alcohol? Like, I don't want to get in trouble for something I didn't do. So he wrote me something called an immediate roadside prohibition. And it's like, just they seize your car, 90 days. You got to pay the impound fee. You get a $500 fine. And he gave it to me for failure to blow on top of laughing at me aside of the road. And I couldn't get it contested. I even hired a lawyer, and she's like, but how can you give her this like drinking and driving charge, this charge for failing to take a test and driving if like you couldn't find her car? Like, how did you even know she had a car? You just gave her like a driving thing. You didn't, it's not like I had my driver's license. Like all that stuff was all, lost in the car and everything. So, and
yeah,
the paramedics, they were like, because I was starting to get a little confrontational with the police because the way they were treating me, and the paramedics are like, listen, they will take you to jail. Okay. Like, don't argue with them because they will take you to jail and you need to go to the hospital right now. And then when I went to the hospital, they just left me in a room for an hour. Nobody came in, and a doctor eventually came in with all these nurses and demanded a blood test and shit. And I was like, where have you been for like the hour? You guys, I was just in a car accident. You guys just like leave me here. And then now you want to like, like blood tests and stuff. I was like, what? So you can like nail me with something? But I had known that I had ingested marijuana, so I wasn't gonna go down for some shisty stuff. But much like my granddad before me, I just pulled everything off, and I was like, get the stuff off me. I was like, and they're like, well, you were just in a car accident. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And you just left me here for an hour and I didn't die. So I'm pretty sure I'll be okay on my own because you don't care about me. So I'm just going to go now. Like, and they're like, well, but you were just in a car accident. I'm like, yeah, you knew that when I came in, and here's an hour later. So the treatment really, and I mean, in that same place, Prince George, that I mentioned, which like is a rough place, people are really mean to me when I first moved to that town. And my buddy said it's because they think you're native. Yeah. So,
wow.
that's the reality of Canada, is that sometimes you get treated like this by like a country where they think that everybody's supposed to be a white person. And if you're not, then you're probably terrible. But I feel like a lot of countries do that. There's like quite a few Asian nations that we won't mention where the lighter your skin is, the closer you are to like godliness. So, but that's what happens in Canada. So some people are not surprised by that story and what happened to me. Some people are really shocked by it. Like just my whole life is just a series of like very unusual events that happen, which have honed my ability to have a very like successful atypical response to them, and maintain this bubbly, most oftentimes happy exterior. And I think it's just also for me to experience these things so I can share them with others in a way that they can digest them. It's all about eating. It's all about consumption.
Perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you obviously took all of the things that, some people would just stop life for, like, oh, no, those cops, they laughed at me and I was hurt. And, no, like, I'm just going to be depressed and go be an alcoholic, or I'm going to go do this and not.
Or I want someone to help
live
me.
Life.
A lot of people are like, I want somebody to save me. I want somebody to help me. I wish at that moment, like, I'm a really independent person, and my grandparents raised me to be that way because I'm pretty sure they knew they were not going to live forever. But at that moment, I just wanted more than anything for a bunch of firefighters or policemen. I wanted somebody to save me right then. I wanted someone to come and save me more than anything in the world. I think I was even crying, and I had to realize that, like, no one is coming to save you. Like, my insurance adjuster, I think it was somebody I was talking to, was like, oh, the tow truck driver. And when I eventually went to get the car out of the impound lot, $1,400 in fees later, he was like, if you'd have been seriously injured there, like, nobody saw you go off the road. Like, some hikers probably would have found you, or some oyster farmers would have found you, like, and he just trailed off. Because, yeah, if I'd have been really seriously injured and I couldn't get out of the car, I would have just bled to death or whatever to death inside the car. Like, that's...
Oh, yeah, you would have been dead.
Yeah, and, like, in the end, I wanted someone to save me. For once in my life, I wanted to be saved, and, like, nobody came. And that... I did actually get saved by search and rescue because my gorgeous gay Filipino friend did get us lost on a cliff on the last day of 2020 on January the 31st. So we did actually have to get search and rescued. And 2 decades of in the woods by myself, I've never had that problem. But you know, you know, just, you know, you're having fun with someone that's not quite as experienced in the woods. And next thing you know, here comes the search and rescue. It was actually that's a story. That's a great story for another time. I just kind of noticed that my battery is dying. I did you on the phone today, but I would love to come back and chat another time if you'd like to have me sometime.
Absolutely. Look, you know, a lot of the stuff that you got going on is great. I'm happy to have you on. I think that some of your experiences, you keep doing you.
Yeah. Right?
And I think
I don't have a choice.
Keep doing you. And the experiences that you have, keep making sure that you talk, because we live in a generation where a lot of people just want the participation trophies, only to realize that life isn't like that. So we need more people like you out there saying, you know, this is how it is, man. And this is what you have to do to get through to the other side of things.
And it's crazy because we lose people like me every day. And some of them are friends that I've had that passed away just because that's what happens in life. Like, you know, car accidents actually. And I'm like always really happy when I meet some young person that, you know, is different because I'm like, there's hope. Look, they're being born too. We lose them, but they're being born. And you, sir, don't rush your psychedelics experience and don't be afraid. And like my DMT buddy says, it comes to you and it finds you and you just know when it's like the right, you know, place and time. And then it's like, it happens. It just links up. That makes it even a better trip too, because you know that it wasn't something you like did on purpose. You know, it was something that just naturally happened.
Destiny, you know? Yeah. It'll happen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to force it. You know, I'll let it come to me. I'm one of those people with the universe, the way it works. You know, I just kind of I try to let it come to me. I don't go too crazy. I'm a Cancer, so you know that's I think part of my being, I guess. But
safety in the shell. Safety in the shell.
The hermit. Yeah. So, do you want to tell the listeners? Is there any specific place they can, you know, follow you? I kind of was looking at some of your stuff. It looks like you post more on Instagram.
I do. I do.
But,
I have a YouTube channel as well. Yeah, I post on Instagram.
Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, I post on Instagram a lot. I'm malicious, like delicious, but with 2 S's. Moose, malicious moose. And I'm also just Melissa Moose. Just look around for a Melissa Moose. If it's an obnoxious one, then you know you found me. Yeah, and if it's brown and obnoxious, then that's me. I have a YouTube channel that's called Bear With Me, like bear, like an animal. But yeah, I don't really use social media all the time, but I'm trying to get more into it just because there's a lot of funny things that happen, and I don't know. I feel like some of what you said, you know, I should just like share what it is, my unique perspective on life. I don't think I'm exceptionally like super cool or doing anything that's, you know, any more noteworthy than anyone else, but I do what I do, and that in itself is quite extraordinary. So, you know, just if anybody gets anything good from it, then that makes me
don't
sell
yourself short.
I just don't care about the fame. I just don't care about it's not about the glory with me ever. It's not about the money and it's not about the glory. It's always about the thing, the actual just doing the thing. I just look for what needs to be done and I do it.
I understand completely. But look, I don't make a dime doing this. I just really enjoy doing it. I like talking to people. You know.
Well, you are.
But look, thank you so much. You can find my podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's Drink O'Clock Pod. I'll have this episode up tomorrow. Hopefully, I have OCD when it comes to editing. I do all my own editing, so I have to make sure it's perfect before I post it out. But I'll send you a message. I'll let you know when it's posted if you want to blast it out to people, and awesome. I'll do the same. So
awesome!
Thank you so much. Great. I appreciate you.
Great. You do a great job.
We'll do this again. I promise.
Awesome! Cheers.
Well, thank you so much. Cheers. I drank both my old fashions as usual because they're delicious.
Old fashions are the best.
And everybody, they're so good. They're so delicious. Everybody have a great night, and thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Drink O'Clock podcast. It's closing time. Until next time. Bottoms up, people. And we'll see you next time.